So I'm standing in court, ready to begin my cross-examination. My target, a Gen Alpha kid. There he is, taking the oath while doing the Fortnite dance. His focus on my questions ensured by a Subway Surfers compilation beamed just above my head. Now, I'm not a renowned advocate by any means. I once heard that you underestimate Liam Fairgrieve at your convenience. They say that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. In which case, I seem to have found myself in a never-ending succession of right rooms. But today I am locked in. Why? Because I've grown a feverish resentment towards Gen Alpha. Now, I don't normally need a reason to feel angry, but I've got 3 reasons here. First, Gen Alpha show disrespect towards their elders, the first generation ever to do so. We've always shown deference to senior lawyers. We view them as Christ-like figures, with apologies to the partners in the room for the demotion. But Gen Alpha never miss a chance to take the mickey. I had an earnest discussion with one of them about the dignity of work the other day, and now I get daily messages that I unfortunately do not have capacity to take on further dignity at this time. Which brings me to B, their poor work ethic. They're always bunking off early. I wouldn't mind, except, and I don't know how this joke is going to land, but to me, Gen Alpha's hobby of choice appears, for some reason, to be going fishing. That landed about how I thought it would. But I put the... Take a look next time. You'll notice a bunch of mulleted 12-year-olds going out with their fishing lines. Now, to me, this is baffling. Half a century ago, we were putting blokes on the moon. And now we've got a generation of youngsters who seem to be like, oh, actually, we'd rather be hunter-gatherers instead. It's baffling. And when Gen Alpha are working, they lean on ChatGPT. They could never do this. None of my speech was written with artificial intelligence. In fact, I'm proud to say that no intelligence of any kind was involved in any of this. And 3, they're so self-absorbed. I've been there. I took off after year 12 to one of those spiritual retreats to find myself. Believe it or not, I found him. Big mistake, we don't get on. But Gen Alpha has retreated permanently into tailored TikTok brain rot, which makes me go, maybe the human capacity for abstract thought was a mistake. They've missed out on the intelligent communal discussions that we used to have when we were growing up, like when we all spent a month debating whether that voice said Laurel or Yanny. Instead, Gen Alpha looks only inwards, hell-bent on achieving, as the kids say, that Tennessee skewer! Except, of course, the kids don't say that. I've made that up, just like I've made all of this up. None of this is for real, for real. I've never had a workplace interaction with a Gen Alpha kid. Gen Alpha starts in 2010, so if I had, you'd all be obliged to call the ombudsman. And I'm not getting ready to cross-examine some kid with relish because I hate young people like him. I'm up here cracking jokes to desperately win the approval of a judging panel who hate young people like me. And even then, with limited success, I mean, some of you will still leave here thinking that the Golden Gavel peaked back in 1979 when Brett Walker absolutely killed with his bit about how Ponzi scheme sounds kind of like Fonzie scheme. Hey! My Uncle Barry had a similar response, but he hasn't found anyone since his favourite vaudeville duo, Yanny and Hardy. And so, as my broccoli-haired, straw-man Gen Alpha adversary disappears, I realise that all of that anger towards Gen Alpha actually says far more about myself. What I thought would be a no-cap cross-examination was actually an examination in open bracket, this ain't it, close bracket, chief. And so we reach that regrettable staple of every modern stand-up routine, the confessional. So huddle up. Maybe my resentment towards Gen Alpha comes from the fact that I'm no longer the cool young thing. As I sit on this stage now, that blaring light at the back of the room seems to draw ever closer. I see the shadows lengthening, I hear the tide rolling out, and all Gen Alpha can tell me is that the fishing's good at low tide. Maybe I'm worried that Gen Alpha was never really the problem. What if Gen Alpha goes on to solve all of the world's problems that my generation has already given up on, with all that spare time they've saved in deleting the first and last syllables from the word charisma? What if my critiques of Gen Alpha's work ethic are just misplaced envy, seeing them run around outside while I sit chained to a desk, overwhelmed with dignity? And you know what? Maybe irreverence isn't so bad. After all, it gave us this event. And maybe self-absorption isn't so bad. After all, it gave us this speech. You know, Gen Alpha might appear to some of us to be difficult to understand right now. But let them cook. Skibbity bye.